Hello and welcome to Chat GCP, a medical science, clinical research and commercialization podcast, and I'm your host, Charles Beasley. On today's episode, we have Professor Greg O'Grady. Greg is a surgeon, a professor, an entrepreneur, and the CEO of Alimetry, a company developing a non-invasive test for the diagnosis of gastric disorders. Great to have you on the podcast today, Greg.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Charles. Excited to be here.
It's awesome. So, first question that I have for you is, have you discovered how to get more than 24 hours out of a single day?
I have not. No, I have not.
All right, so there's no hope for the rest of us because you
right.
have an incredible resume, an incredible background, something to be absolutely admired. Why don't you, from medicine to surgery to entrepreneurship, commercialization, CEO, absolutely astounding. So what is the overarching mission that you're on? What's the through line between all of these experiences?
Yeah, that's a great question. One I ask myself, actually, from time to time. But yeah, it's all about impact for patients, and that's the North Star for me and what we do as a company as well, but it has been all along. And as a doctor, that's a really satisfying job. You can see patients, you can treat them one at a time and build great relationships and really have that connection. But with research, you have an opportunity to leverage that and impact through your work and discoveries, hopefully, a larger number of patients all around the world. And then I just found with commercialization, it's another level. You can really do that on steroids by engaging with a huge number of awesome engineers and commercialization people who know how to take these technologies to the world at scale.
Yeah.
And so just been kind of building on that layer upon layer and just learning how it goes. And there's another layer to that, actually, of that leverage, and that's training and educating other great people coming through, and that's where the professor thing comes through, and the next generation doing the same thing. Yeah, that's the connection.
What's the next level then? So we've got commercialization, teaching.
I don't know.
Interplanetary exploration.
Yeah, I'll leave that one to others. But we just want to have an impact, and if that impact grows, then I'm happy, and we're doing a good thing.
Oh, excellent. And I did see in another discussion you had with someone that you initially thought about doing a physics degree and a biotechnology engineering degree, rather.
Yeah. I started out doing physics and engineering, and I always loved technology, and that's where I've kind of ended up. But it's been quite nice because I didn't finish that degree. I found it a bit dry, and then I switched over to medicine, which has a lot more life in it, obviously. But then I came back to it and did a PhD in Biomedical Engineering Institute, and that was a natural fit into medical devices. So it all came together.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was a temporary hiatus away from the engineering side, and you're back into the thick of it now.
Yeah. A bit of a pendulum, but ultimately a harmony. Yeah.
Excellent. So you did medicine, went into surgery, and the surgery informed a lot of your research interest and ultimately a lot of the bioengineering that you've ended up been doing, right?
That's it, yeah. And, I've always been interested in the gut on the research side. It's a really interesting organ. Might not seem it, but, there's so many people out there with gut problems, and it's been relatively poorly understood, which makes it fun. It's not like the heart where we kind of know a lot, and everything you do is right on the edges of knowledge. In the gut, there's still a lot that we don't know, and so it's been fun to dive into an area and really build up something new and translate it out of the lab and into the real world and now into medical device. So, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I think a field of inquiry that is less well resolved is a lot more interesting, isn't it, than adding like a little additional step onto something that is just a huge bolus of knowledge already.
Yeah,
right.
That's the way I've found. Some people don't like that uncertainty, or it can be more daunting. But and also you can make great applications on top of applied knowledge. But I like these deep problems, the harder ones, where sometimes you don't even know what the problem is.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a good example of not knowing what the problem is and unearthing it to begin with that you can share?
I tell my students that the history of medicine has been about this. There's three types of problems in the world, I tell them. The first type of problem is when the problem's known and the solution's known, like you've got a broken bone and you know how to fix it.
Right.
Second type of problem is the problem's known but the solution's not known. Some types of cancer might fall into that. And then there's type 3 problems where the problem's not known, the solution's not known. And this kind of came out of geopolitics, but things like the gut, a lot of gut function and gut symptoms, but also consciousness and hard problems like this still exist in medicine, and a lot of mental health disorders. So there's fewer and fewer of them because history of medicine's been turning them into type 1 problems, which everyone knows and loves and good results. But it's still a journey for some areas, and the gut is one of them.
I love that. That's so good, delineating the different types of problems. Is that a Rumsfeld thing also, the unknown unknowns?
Yeah, it came out of geopolitics originally. Yeah, you're right.
That's so good. Oh, it's interesting we can apply geopolitics also to medicine and research.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was there any one particular like eureka moment or pivotal moment that you had when you were doing surgery and research that you thought, oh man, we can spin out something out of this idea, this problem that we're seeing, there's an obvious solution. We don't quite have it yet, but we can develop it. We're away from, maybe a type 3 problem to a type 2 problem.
Yeah,
yeah. If we cross that bridge.
Yeah. So, we've been building this for 10 years on and off in the lab and really leading the world in gut electrophysiology, the clinical side. And we had a friend of mine, a colleague, who doing the same thing in San Diego. And we'd been very invasive. Being a surgeon, we'd been in there in the gut. We had access to the gut itself rather than the body surface, and we were putting electrodes everywhere we could and really understanding things. But he was approaching things non-invasively. And then one day he came out with a study showing that you could pick these patterns we were getting non-invasively from the body surface, and they correlated with symptoms, which is a bit of a hit in our field because not much was correlating with symptoms at all. But when you've got a correlation between a biomarker and a symptom, you're on the right track.
Sure.
And when he published that, we kind of got our minds together and we thought, oh, we've got to go for this because there's a big opportunity to make a difference and build a company. So that's when we triggered the partnership and co-founding and then launched Alimetry.
That's fantastic. Taking a step back, you mentioned that you're operating on some patients, but you're in a research setting, you get their consent to have a little bit of a investigation, put some probes onto their different organs.
That's it, yeah. Very generous patients, and it's a privilege. It's fascinating. So you get a short window during the operation because you don't want to leave the patients under anesthesia for a long time. Sure. And you don't want to use resources in the hospital, but you do get some opportunities to conduct research, and that sort of research is really rare and really special to be involved with, and leads to really unique outcomes because not many people are doing that sort of thing.
That's fantastic. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, how would you otherwise investigate? You have to start invasively because you have to be right up there with the organ to begin with. You can't just do everything imaging-wise or surface-wise.
Yeah, you need ground truth.
Yes.
And that ground truth has put this company on a very firm platform because we have very good understanding about what's really going on. So it's a bit like looking at the moon through a telescope versus going and walking there and really understanding what's happening. And you know what I mean? So,
yeah. But I suppose if you've been there walking around enough, and you can develop the picture well enough that when you're looking through the telescope, you got a clear picture, right? So that's like the translation.
Yeah, once you got that ground truth, you can build on that to the non-invasive.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it was the invasive research that you were doing paired with the work that your collaborator was doing in San Diego, non-invasively, put those two together, spin out a company, commercialize it, and we're away. And that's Alimetry, essentially.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, co-founder.
So simple, guys.
Armin Garavan's his name. He's really smart on the engineering side, so it was a good partnership. I'm sort of a clinician who dabbles in engineering, and he's an engineering who dabbles clinically, so it was we could speak each other's language.
Yeah, I love it. So you're coming from kind of complementary but opposite ends of the spectrum.
That's it.
Yeah, to really complement each other. Oh, that's fantastic. So the main problem that Alimetry is solving is the diagnosis of gastric disorders, which have traditionally been very difficult to do. You might do a lot of non-invasive investigations, a lot of imaging, a lot of symptomatic questionnaires, that kind of thing, and it's hard to get a definitive diagnosis. Is that accurate?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, these symptoms are really common. About 1 in 10 people around the place would have indigestion, nausea, reflux, something like this, and often at the moment it's just really hard to get an answer. We're very good at doctors about diagnosing the hardware of the gut, doing scopes and getting the cancers and the inflammation and the ulcers, this sort of thing. But when it comes to kind of the software of the gut, we're often in the dark, and we're making guesses and trial and error therapy, and just patients go around on these treadmills of diagnosis and don't really have any answers. And so what we want to do is break that cycle. Instead of doing diagnosis by ruling things out, we want to cut to the chase and provide a positive diagnosis. Yeah, so that's what we're aiming to achieve, and if we can achieve that, then we'll deliver better outcomes for patients, more efficient care, tick all the boxes that are needed to make an impact and a good product.
Yeah, and by software, is that the electrophysiology?
Electrophysiology and the nerves, and the connection between the brain and the gut is also very important.
Yeah, that's a hot topic, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Gut-brain connection.
The gut-brain axis, yeah, and really common. It goes both ways. Things that are going on in the gut can influence the mental state, and the mental state can influence the gut, and the nerves between them play a big role.
It's almost as if we've graduated from we've got so much knowledge about the human body and medicine that we've graduated from going, let's look at individual organ systems. on their own versus like in the whole, right?
Yeah, that's the game. That's the game I've always been interested in. Integration.
Yeah.
Integrative physiology. And that's a lot of the work that New Zealand are leading the world in at the Bioengineering Institute as well, is bringing these scales together and the organs together and trying to work out how the whole body talks to each other, other parts of it. So,
because I work in clinical research, so a lot of small molecule drugs and monoclonal antibody drugs, and we're always, you look at, investigator brochures of different molecules and the mechanism of action, and it's almost like a linear pathway. It's like drug acts on this protein which does this, so if you treat that, then it'll stop this. It's like such a linear, almost direct, scalable relationship, and you go, well, the human body is far more complex than that, infinitely more complex, which is why you get side effects from different drugs. And but without having an appreciation for a lot of what else is going on out there, you're going to miss a lot of it. Yeah. So integration. So what's the scale of the problem that Alimetry is trying to solve? So gastric disorders, indigestion, nausea, sounds pretty common. So 1 in 10, is that what you said?
Yeah, overall, yeah. In New Zealand, about 7 to 8% of the population have some sort of indigestion. 1% have nausea. In the US, it's higher, and both of them. So, they are really common disorders, and quite poorly understood. Growing 3.5% per year for reasons we don't really understand. Is it diet? Is it the viruses around? Is it stressful lifestyle? So there's a lot feeding into it. It's growing, and it's been really poorly understood. There's no specific therapies for these things that work every time. There's no, apart from us, I hope, no really strong diagnostics that give the story. So huge space, but really underserved, far behind the rest of medicine. Type 3 problem. Yeah.
Type 3 problem. Yeah. So the diagnosis is difficult, but the treatment is difficult. I mean, I imagine there is so many potential root causes, so it's hard to again find that linear point of interjection. No, what am I saying?
Where you can apply the therapy, in a personalized way is what we're going for. So once you define the phenotype and the person's individual conditions, then you can have an actionable therapy based on that biomarker. And
so phenotype, is that something that you guys have developed based on what has come out of the research?
That is the goal. We obviously, it's not our word as such. There's lots of other fields that use these words, but we're trying to develop phenotypes of patients. The broad picture is these symptoms can come from a number of places. They could come from this gut-brain axis we've been talking about. They could come from a hypersensitive gut. Often after infections, things become really wound up and hypersensitive, so even normal peristalsis or movements of the gut can cause pain and symptoms. Or they can come from a true neuromuscular disorder where the stomach is really not working. And so we call these phenotypes, and with our test we aim to help steer the clinician in the direction of which one is the dominant one, because they can overlap, and which one's the dominant one, and then how do we action a treatment based on that knowledge.
Okay, so you're kind of categorizing someone into one or a mix of those phenotypes.
Correct.
For an actionable diagnosis and then intervention.
Yeah, that's it. That's the way.
Oh, that's fantastic. All non-invasively and without a lot of exposure to radiation, so imaging.
Yeah, and that's the dream, because GI patients probably get a bit tired of all the tubes going one way or the other, or both. And so there's scopes, there's other pressure tests we do, things that are quite invasive and uncomfortable. Then the radiation side of things, especially in children, and we don't love giving radiation to patients if we can avoid it above a certain threshold. And a lot of these patients end up exceeding their radiation thresholds because they're just constantly having scans and trying to explain things.
Yeah. Oh man, that's amazing. So how does the device work? I've seen a few photos and it's really elegant, beautifully designed. Almost looks space age. It's fantastic. Yeah. But it's a series of electrodes in a it's like a A4 sized patch that you apply to the stomach.
That's a pretty good description. So just like the heart, the gut runs on electricity. The body's own natural electricity is always just running through it like waves, and it's sitting there unnoticed, but it's how the gut moves and contracts based on this wave patterns. And just like the heart, those wave patterns can go wrong and become irregular and dysrhythmic, and the frequency can go wrong, the rhythm can go wrong, the amplitude can be too weak, these sort of things. And so we can pick that knowledge up from the body surface just like you would with an ECG, but for the stomach, or the brain, the EEG, but again, parallel for the stomach. Now, these signals are really weak is the problem. They're 100 times weaker than the heart. And so to pick them up is hard. And to do that accurately, some of the solutions we've come up with is this big, as you've said, big sheet of electrodes. So we've got a lot of them, really high density, and it can pull that signal out. And then on the processing side, there's a lot of heavy-duty algorithms and increasingly AI that can pull that signal out from the noise, internal noise, external noise, whatever else is going on, to give a clean signal.
Yeah.
And that's probably the hardest thing of all. Yeah. So.
Right, like amplifying the actual true signal without bringing in some of the background noise that's there from. I imagine if the electrodes are on the stomach, it might pick up certain activity from the heart, which is
that's
there, or other organs as well.
Yeah, the heart's relatively easier, but the colon's close by, and small bowel's close, but it's a bit different. So that internal noise is relevant, but also any movement of the abdominal wall and patient moving around.
Yeah. It's interesting to think of the body as being partly physiological. It's amazing. I mean,
we're made of electricity. There's electricity all going on everywhere all the time.
Yeah. So surely, maybe this is putting the cart before the horse, but there are other organs that could benefit from a Alimetry style investigation as well.
Yeah,
and it's not just the stomach and the heart and the brain that could benefit from. Yeah,
that's right. The colon I've mentioned is definitely a hot topic, and we don't do it, but potentially there's stimulation approaches, for example, electrical stimulation approaches for the bladder, and that's really effective. The uterus is a very electrical organ. Childbirth, so all these smooth muscle organs are controlled by electricity in some way.
Yeah. So plenty of other avenues that we can investigate.
Yeah, there's no shortage of things to do.
Plenty more type 3 problems out there, no doubt.
Yeah.
So we've got the device. It gets given to the patient with oversight from a physician, placed on their stomach. Is it like a time? Is it a couple hours, 4 hours, 5 hours type thing?
Yeah, it is. We like to do a bit of a fasting period just to get our eye in, half an hour, and then we stress them with the meal. So we give them a pretty big meal, stress the stomach, and invoke symptoms. And then we measure for 4 hours, which is how long it takes for the stomach to process one meal, generally. And so we like to do that whole meal cycle. And all that time, the patients log in their symptoms on an app, so we get a very granular symptom profile, which is a lot of thoughts gone into how that can be accurate. And we get all the symptom data, all the electrophysiology data, and we analyze it and bank it as well for doing analytics.
Right.
Yeah.
So I can imagine if you're banking all that data, you've got the symptomatic, and then you've got the objective data, which is the electrophysiological data. The more data sets you have, the clearer and more powerful the picture becomes, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's the benefit of AI integrating into this approach
For
too?
sure, yeah. It takes a couple of thousand cases before you can start to apply these. We've found the AI program really kicks off once you've got a few thousand in your bank, and so we're getting to that scale now, which is really exciting.
Yeah. So I had another chap on the podcast. His name's Chris Vett. He runs a company called GeneCrypt, and they've got a end-to-end encrypted program for the investigation of DNA sequencing sequence data. And their whole concept is that you need to have enough of a data set in order to have actionable and informative and actually helpful investigations ongoing, because otherwise, how do you have an actual signal? I mean, it's obviously, there's not a one-to-one parallel, but the concept is there. You need enough data to actually see a signal versus background noise.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the AI field is going to boom in this area. You know, we've got the big players in AI, these large language models, the OpenAIs and so on, but in healthcare, for these targeted applications, it's about niche tools that can collect very curated data on specific problems and then solve specific, present specific solutions. And that's the space we want to be in the gut. And there's endless opportunity in other parts of medicine, certainly to do the same thing. But it's going to be an exciting ride because it's going to change dramatically.
Absolutely. We're kind of graduating from low-cost, broadcast therapies, medications, interventions, into the more tailored, personalized approach. And with that comes, generally speaking, I mean, you hear a lot of these new drugs that are coming out that are based on someone's genetic profile or cell and gene therapies, and they're ludicrously expensive, like insane. Amazing technology. It's very commendable what's been happening, but there's the cost piece to the personalization, which I think medical devices, and particularly what you're developing, the barrier to entry is not as high. I mean, we're not talking like $250,000 per store intervention. So it's personalization that is more applicable to more people, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we want to democratize access to this testing, and make it widely available, because all you need is an internet connection and a chair to do it. So be done anywhere in the world. You don't need the nuclear medicine department anymore, or these kind of things. So at least for this application. So that's the game we're in, to make it more accessible and easier, and eventually in people's homes where medicine also starting to blur the lines.
True.
So
So I suppose on that note, you'd want to have enough of a data set to support going from oversight by a clinician to doing it at home. You've got enough data to support enough instructions.
Yeah,
it's foolproof.
That's right. It has to be foolproof.
Yeah.
You're right, because you're at home, you're lying on the couch, the dog's jumping on you. You got kids, so whatever else is going on in these patients' homes, it has to be really robust and foolproof to work. But that's a really interesting road that we're looking at pretty closely.
So can this device, so electrodes, getting the objective data, comparing that to the subjective symptomatic data from the patient, punching out a diagnosis, can this be used to inform lifestyle changes if there's like an obvious, you shouldn't be eating this, or you're clearly stressed, or something else is going on? Surely there's some interplay with lifestyle factors.
Yeah, that's another really interesting area that we're looking at for the future of the company. At the moment, we're kind of on the medical device side of the fence, and the customer is the clinician, and so they're going to be directing a course of therapy to the patient, and so we're not directly interacting with the consumer, we'll call them, the patient. But in the future, that's where a lot of medicine is going to go, and it's a super interesting area, particularly because the patients often feel abandoned after they leave the doctor's office. They can't access the doctor all the time. They don't have access to dietary coaching often, or psychological therapy, or coaching, whatever else they need. So, there's some really interesting opportunities, not just for us, but all of healthcare, and, taking healthcare to the home and blurring those lines.
Yeah. And,
also serving the clinician better by providing data back to them so that they have more holistic understanding of what's going on in the patient's life and symptoms, and kind
of breaking down the ivory tower of medicine, and
these silos, that's
silo information. That's fantastic. So why don't we talk about the commercialization journey that you went on? So were there any pivotal challenges that you had to overcome? So correct me if I'm wrong, but the company was started in 2019, and you had the IP through. Yeah, I mean, any pivotal channels, was it like IP protection, seed funding, working out who's going to do what? You mentioned your collaborator over in the US.
Yeah. It's a really wild ride spinning out these companies. But I had experience with it before, because I'd previously had a startup, as partly out of the university and partly from some great friends, the Insights company, which I was involved in co-founding, and so I'd been on this kind of road before about taking technology out of the university. It's a great New Zealand company making a therapeutic device. And so when it came to Alimetry, I had some experience. But you're right, there's these huge learning curves and challenges getting the technology from both from a research sense to a product. That's an incredible journey. You can't just underestimate that. And that journey is not only the technology and the design and the usability, but it's also the regulatory aspects. Getting it through these medical regulatory bodies is not non-trivial, and building the quality system around it. And so there's a huge amount of work that can be easily underestimated, and manufacturing. So then you've got to make the product. So building a manufacturing facility, totally underestimated that, and so that's been a lot of fun as well, and really satisfying to see it grow. But and so you kind of go through this. You can map it out, and you can take it on. The main thing that's benefited us is just a really great team of people to help, and really experienced people who just know their jobs really well, and came in and just owned parts of this, whether it was the quality system or the regulatory or the manufacturing. We just had really awesome people, and so the main learning point I've had is just you can't surround yourself with enough fantastic collaborators to help you achieve the goal, and teamwork is what wins. Yeah.
So I often think, if we're going to have in New Zealand a really successful, high-value industry, we need the human capital. And so often, I found this in my own career, you start getting pulled away from New Zealand because the jobs are better paying, or there's more infrastructure to do your job. There's more career opportunities outside of New Zealand. That's kind of what led me to start this podcast, because there's so much cool stuff happening here, but we need to retain the human capital to be able to do it. It's the people it's all well and good having a great idea and being a well-motivated founder, but unless you have the people to be able to outsource and tell what to do or give ownership to what to do, it's not really going to go anywhere, is it?
Yeah, it's about that ecosystem. I completely agree. And the people, in medical device I can speak to, the likes of Fisher & Paykel Healthcare and these huge companies that have been so successful and extraordinary have started to fill that ecosystem in ways that I didn't think they even appreciate. Just as you say, the human capital, but also the supply chains in New Zealand have evolved, and just the knowledge of medical devices and how they work and are made and built. And so you need game changers at scale, and then an ecosystem under them to really grow it up. And we're seeing that now. There's a huge pipeline of exciting companies in healthcare in New Zealand. And look around, and it's really fun to see them growing and evolving alongside you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like it's like succession in environmental science or environmental biology. You get one thing that is successful, and they grow a little ecosystem around there, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But you need that first one there to kind of break open the market, or break open the possibility, and have enough of a critical mass that people work there, stay there, get skilled, and can then. Yeah. Sure. I think one of your C-suite executive, she used to work at Fisher & Paykel, didn't she?
Yeah. Hani came in early, and we've been lucky to get a few other people from experienced in that industry as well. But you can't be unless you can see it, they say, and so we look at these companies and we think it can be done from New Zealand, and we can take great products to the world. So full respect to them. Yeah.
So I've heard you refer to the healthcare system as having an immune system against innovation or new technologies. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. So this is a metaphor I really like. So it does. And I mean, it's, it sees foreign new things and it will react to them in a number of ways. And this can be both really good and really hard and harmful. So on the good side, you have to be skeptical and critical as a doctor. You're not going to jump on anything new. You want to see it ticking boxes, and there's facets of the immune system, be it the regulatory side, is the clinical evidence in place? Do you trust it? Do you see peers using it? There's all these things that you have to tick to get through that immune system, and it's there for a purpose. It's to weed out things that are not going to help patients and harm the system. So, it's a good thing in a way, but then if you're an innovator, it can be a challenge. So, some of these hurdles you have to get through are extraordinary. The regulatory, the quality system, they can really slow down innovation. And then there's the payment challenge of getting your product through to payment. And you just have to chip away at showing outstanding evidence and get through the trust thing as well. Things move at the speed of trust in healthcare. And so the only way you can accelerate that process is by becoming a trusted, evidence-based tool and convincing people of that. So that's the game we're in.
And it's not as if any of these individual hurdles operate in sequence, right? I mean, quality is there, regulatory is there, but it's all in parallel, and you're figuring out the reimbursement side of things, the insurance coverage. And that's probably an underappreciated hurdle to jump, right?
Very underappreciated. So I mean, they look like they're in series, but you're kind of thinking of them right from the start, how you can shape it out. But the company can only kind of, there's gates, regulatory gate before you can hit the clinical sales gate, the reimbursement gate. So reimbursement, that's the goal. Once you've made that, you've done everything. So that's the ultimate goal in these companies, is to get reimbursed, so people are paying for the product, and it's sales become easier. And you only get there by being a standard of care, and you can't shortcut that. It's a long, challenging road, and you have to be offering genuine value before the insurers and the payers will start paying for it. And they want to see that value not only for the patient often, but they want to see it for the healthcare system. So is it value-based? And that just introduces more challenges, but also more it's important. That's the way healthcare works, and we're here for it. So just have to take it on.
So along that long road, where is Alimetry now?
So we've had FDA clearance in New Zealand and the UK, and we're in market. We're in a controlled market release in the US, and we've just got awarded our first reimbursement code from the CMS, which is the American Medicare Services body. So so we're now at that. We're presenting our data in healthcare economics, and and starting to get clinical use around the world, which is pretty exciting. We're in over 20 hospitals.
Yeah.
We've had 2,500 tests done, and it's been great to see some of the stories come out the other side of that of patients who are being helped. So, yeah, we're starting to hit that scale now. The real exciting part of clinical traction. Yeah.
So the controlled market release, that is just a limited number of sites, limited number of patients, and you use that to support full market release. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. It's another validation step we go through. You don't want to spread yourself too thin. You want to work with a small number of excellent providers and hospitals and leaders. And also you've got to prove out that you can get the test paid for and go through that reimbursement cycle. So it helps to be focused when you're doing that. So we're working with some great hospitals and key opinion leaders, they're called, the influencers of the Instagrams.
KOLs, got to have them.
Yeah, that's it. So, yeah, and they're great too because they see things you don't see. So,
yeah. So why don't we take a step back and look at because we have clinical research in the catchphrase for this podcast, the clinical studies that were done to support. So obviously with medical device, not quite as, a high burden or high bar to clear in terms of clinical studies that need to be done. It's less invasive. I mean, it's not invasive at all in this case. So it's based on a risk profile, how much needed to substantiate via clinical trial, compared to, say, a small molecule, which is just ludicrous by comparison. Very important. Poor choice of word on my behalf, but you know what I mean. So what kind of clinical studies did you do to support the 510K?
Yeah, the 510K was the least of them. That was just I say all you have to do, it's still a challenge, but you have to show substantial equivalence versus another product out there. And we got an old product of Medtronic's that had been around a long time ago, and we managed to find one and showed we were substantially equivalent to a cleared device, and then we used ourselves as the predicate to introduce enhancements with clinical studies. But, the medical device process, you do feasibility, and then you do kind of validation and pivotal studies. So we've been going through that process of, we did a lot of feasibility work. We showed this is possible. We showed it's reliable. And then it's about on these pivotal studies showing that we can definitively show disease A versus disease B in subgroups of patients, so we can separate patients diagnostically. And so we've done a number of those in diabetes and in nausea and functional dyspepsia, these other disorders we're in the process of diagnosing.
Yep.
And then you've got to go further, and you've got to show healthcare outcomes, which is the problem with being a diagnostic. You've got to really show that you can change the outcome and health economics. So you've really got to show the whole picture before the walls come down to people using it. And so that's, we've done over 20 papers now in the literature just on gastric Alimetry. And so, you can't have enough of them. It's got to be standard of care. You've got to be really robust.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just keep going. Yeah.
And the health economic side of things, so you're collecting quality of life data from your patients who are using the diagnostic tool, and not just during the test, obviously, it's thereafter forming their decisions.
Yeah, so we collect data for you up to a year at the moment, but it'll be longer.
Oh, okay.
And then it's not only quality of life, it's also how many other diagnostic tests they're having, and however the days in hospital. Are we reducing that intensity of care? And so far that's been really great. We've done 2 New Zealand studies and show we've had significant reductions in healthcare intensity after the test has been introduced into hospitals. So that's what we want to see. That that means patients are getting off this diagnostic treadmill. And we're impacting healthcare.
So that's further substantiating the utility of the device and the benefit not just to individual patients, clinicians, hospitals, but the wider healthcare ecosystem. If you're reducing healthcare interaction intensity and days in hospital, scans,
that's it.
It's huge.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh man, so cool. Who did you use for your health economics, if you don't mind my asking?
We've had some consultants, but we've done it in-house.
Oh, well done. Yeah, very
thanks,
cool.
Yeah, we do as much in-house as we can, and but we get consultants to guide us.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, no, I did, part of my master's was a little bit of health economics as well. So, I mean, it's not something that, it should be more well known what health economics is, because you kind of need to think of that from the outset. It's not, I've got this great device or drug. How great or is that device or drug? From different perspectives, like not just the patient, but the healthcare system as a whole. So going back to the commercialization side of things, how has your role as CEO changed in the last 4 years? I imagine when you're first starting out, it's a lot more dictatorial, a smaller team. You've got to make sure that people are doing X, Y, and Z. You appoint them, you assign them the task, but you got to trust them, but also keep tabs on them. As the company grows, you can't quite have you're running out of fingers for the number of pies that are there, kind of thing. How has it changed for you in your experience?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, maybe I'm lucky, but I don't have to do much dictating. I seem to do more listening. Maybe they dictate to me. No, but we have a genuinely great team, so I'm lucky in that respect. But so while the focus is more on when you're starting out, it's a really small team, and your touch points are much higher on everything, so you can be really in the weeds. And I personally love that detail, so probably a bit too much, so I can be, really detail oriented. But yeah, you're across everything, and then as you grow, you just have to start zooming out of areas. And if you've got great talent can come in and lead those areas in your leadership team, then that's great. So I've done a lot of that. I'm still very hands-on in areas where I've special domain knowledge, especially on the clinical side and some of the research studies and that kind of thing. But increasingly zooming out, it's really nice as a CEO. You have to, otherwise you get drowned. And so that's been a learning journey. But also increasingly now that we're going commercial, the touch points become higher in other areas. The customer success, the sales cycles, and there's no. I think most startups would agree with this. There's no better salesperson initially than the founder. So you're often on the road, talking to people, and convincing them that there's merit in the product. So I do a lot of that. So the focus has shifted more into that field at the moment.
Yeah, right. With the life cycle of the company going from startup, validation, commercial. Yeah,
that's it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Is there anything, looking back on the last 4 years, is there anything you might have done differently? I know you had the experience with the inside company, which probably did really help inform a lot of the decisions that you made, prior experience in that. But is there anything that you would do differently given the opportunity, positive or negative, I guess?
One thing with the Insights company was, I didn't have any commercial experience at that time. So I started out in a CEO role with the guys for maybe 18 months. And then when it came to raising money and commercializing, I pretty soon realized we needed someone who had done it before to be running things. And so we were very lucky to get a great CEO, Garth Sutherland, who came in and ran that, and I handed over. But once I'd kind of learnt more and seen how that was done, I was ready for the charge all the way with Alimetry, which has been great exercise. I try not to think of areas where we could have done differently. There's bound to be many of them, but I don't know. We've been really lucky. I think, realizing as early as possible that reimbursement is the ultimate goal. You can't start that soon enough. And so these healthcare economic studies, the outcome studies, really doubling down on those, which we've been, increasingly doing, is what moves the needle at the commercial end of the scale. And so, I think we've been pretty good on that, but you just can't be early enough on doing that sort of work as a med device. Yeah.
Excellent. I actually had Abbas Almirani on the podcast. He was episode 1.
Oh, yeah.
So he's a health economist, runs health economics consulting. And we just nerded out for like 45 minutes on how cool health economics is. And, you hear New Zealand being a great place, that all the decisions from Pharmac as a lot of it is made from a health economics standpoint. But obviously the budget is small, so there's limitations there. But I was a little bit shocked when you see there's like 11 health economists in the country. There's not that many.
Right, yeah.
We need more of them if it's this important, particularly for innovative drugs or medical devices.
I mean, a lot of it's not super complex that you always need a specialist by your side, but at least having those outcomes available to you and studies that you're doing and getting the data.
Yeah,
that's the key thing. Yeah.
So you kind of alluded that having that experience from someone else, but then you got the experience yourself, so you felt more comfortable making those decisions. What advice would you give to aspiring medtech entrepreneurs? How do they get their start in entrepreneurship or commercialization?
Yeah, it's a formidable
$1 million
area.
Question, that one.
Yeah, no, it's a formidable area because it's daunting. It's a daunting area. There's so much knowledge and specialist knowledge and things that can totally trip you up. If you get the regulatory plan wrong, you can spend a year or two on the wrong track, and it would, that'd be the end of the company. So these sort of things are really critical, and they're hard to know. So the only way you can do it is by having great mentors who have done it before.
Yep.
And, we've been really careful to surround ourselves with the right investors who, have the right knowledge and the right attitude and, the capability, to take a MedTech company to market. But also the chairs of the company. We're very lucky to have a chair at the moment, Eric Engelson, who's been through this, more times than I can count, 39 years of MedTech, and he's had, 7 great exits before and IPOs and things. So he really knows how it's done. And if you have someone like that who you can have on the end of a phone call or a text message, then that can be just a game changer as the founder. And so that's my strongest bit of advice: get a co-founder to lean on and get a really good chair, someone who's done it before if you can. It's hard to get them, but if they're willing to dive in, then that'll make your life a lot less stressful, a lot happier, and a lot more productive.
And I've seen there's a lot of programs coming out of the University of Auckland and uni services that really support commercialization or get exposure to these things, sitting on, even just as an observer, various committees through uni services and
full credit to uni services, and the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem out of Auckland has really been growing fast. And a lot of it's early stage convincing university students to get involved, and the first thing they do may not be successful, but they get a taste for it and some learning under their belts, and then the next one might be really good. So a lot of it's about that, and full credit to them. They've been driving that really hard. Uni services are outstanding at that in particular, and so I can't speak highly enough of them. That's what we need more of, right? To change the country, we need this attitude that New Zealand can take it to the world, build great products and build great companies, and then what will flow will be productivity and economic growth and things that people value, and hopefully the products they make an impact as well. So that's the ecosystem we want.
Yeah, I mean, so you reference Fisher and Paykel as kind of like the critical mass. Alimetry is kind of 2.0 of that. It fits into that mold. It's if you can see it happening, you can think of it as yourself being able to do it. So you saw Fisher and Paykel. Someone is going to be seeing Greg O'Grady and Alimetry, and it's just going to be a sequence of events, a chain essentially.
Yeah, that's it. I was out at we met. There's other great ones. I was out at a Royal Biosurgery the other day with the CEO, and just seeing what they've achieved over 15 years, taking essentially what's a waste product, gut, pieces of gut from sheep, and building a really sophisticated wound care solution family of products has just been amazing. And that's an example that came from literally nothing. Brian's idea, built this great company, and now it's employing a huge number of people out there and growing fast. So that's the sort of thing that can be done from nothing, just some great ideas and a huge amount of ambition and persistence. Inspiring.
Absolutely. So in terms of ambition, where to next for Alimetry? So you're in, obviously, the controlled market release now. Eventually there'll be full market release in all jurisdictions. So you mentioned you've got the UK and the US right now, and New Zealand?
New Zealand.
Yeah, so then eventually globally. But high level, sky's the limit. What's the future looking like for Alimetry?
Yeah, so our mission is to get this product humming and both, leveled up, and so it's providing an awesome solution, but also selling really well so that the company can stand on its feet, and then we can build out the platform, because it is a platform technology. And once you have platform technology and an awesome team, then we can build new products. And that's where we want to go. And also look at this exciting opportunities around what we've talked about, these home care opportunities, these digital health platforms, the AI paradigm that's going to change some medicine. And so we see a lot of opportunities to expand into those, but you can't get ahead of yourself. And so, you got to walk, crawl before you can walk, or whatever it is. So walk before you can run. So we're at that stage, and it's about really nailing this commercial release and making sure that people want and use this product so that the company can do the next useful thing. Yeah,
not losing sight of what's important in the here and now in favour for 5-10 years in the future.
Exactly. That's a trap for sure.
Yeah. I mean, everyone likes to be aspirational, but you got to do the first things first.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. If you want to have that impact, you got to do the thing right in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been super enlightening. Thank you so much for your time. If people want to find out more about Alimetry, yourself, what's happening in the company, where you're going in the future, where can they go?
Yeah, we've got a website that shows off the company and the product, obviously alimetry.com, but also on LinkedIn we have a presence, so you can follow us there. And we're on Twitter to a lesser extent. It's called Twitter these days, but certainly LinkedIn we're on. So yeah, you can join us there and follow us. And thanks so much for the opportunity to talk today. It's been great to be on your podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much.